Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, I just want to introduce myself as Zakia White, the events manager here at the Center for Black Innovation. And I just want to thank you all for being here tonight as we watch the Black Miami with the esteemed Dr. Marvin Dunn. It was a spectacular film. And I learned so much. And it's so interesting because this film first came out in 2014. And that is when I came down to Miami. I'm actually a New Jersey native. I'm from Newark, New Jersey, which is in his. Okay, all right. Which is a historic black town in New Jersey. And I feel although I'm not from Miami and I'm not from Overtown, I feel so connected to this city because, you know, I'm not going to say one black city, they're all the same, but there's lots of connections in the struggle and the triumph of a black person in an urban city. So I just want to say thank you, Dr. Dunn, because in my 10 years of being an educator, I I wasn't teaching any of what I saw tonight, and I didn't know any of what I saw tonight because that is not in the curriculum. It's unfortunate that that's not what I was teaching my students because what I learned in this film is what they should know, right? And I know, Dr. Dunn, you being an educator at FIU for so long, you have seen clearly with all of the history that was in this film, you've seen so much in Miami, you've impacted so many lives, and it's just such a blessing for us all to be able to watch this film during Black History Month right here in the heart of Overtown. So again, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Dunn. So, Dr. Dunn, as I mentioned, we're watching the Black Miami. It's during Black History Month. I just want to start by reflecting on the progress and also the ongoing challenges of Miami, because this film, it shined a light on a lot of, the history of Miami. And these are a lot of things that people didn't know. I don't know about you all, but did you know all of this history in Miami? Like, I didn't know about the Black Pirates. I first want to know, Dr. Dunn, how did you even learn all of this?
Well, good evening, everybody. Very nice to be with you. How did I do that? I had slave student labor available
Okay.
at FIU. I could assign students to do anything for a grade. But I was able to get students over a period of 10 years to go to every newspaper that was published in Miami since 1896 and find every article about black people and copy it and bring it to me so that we could incorporate the material into the story. I did that book because when the riot happened, 1980, I wrote a book about that, and I wanted to write a very short piece about Black Miami history, but there was nothing. A few articles here and there, but there was no book written about the presence of blacks in Miami from the arrival of blacks in the 1640s until the 1980s. So I did that book because of the absence of information. It took 12 years to do it. And I think of all the work that I've done, this is the one that I'm most proud of and that will probably live well beyond my own lifetime. I'm hoping that some young historian will write the next chapter of this book, because this book ends in 1980. What's happened to us since 1980? So maybe a new set of scholars will pick up and take over the challenge at this point.
Well, you actually answered that question because that was going to be something that I asked you. Will there be a Black Miami too? Because as you mentioned, there is a stopping point, but we're still continuing the history of Miami every day. All of us in this room, we're actively making history. Dr. Dunn, what you're doing, the garden next door, that is a part of our history. The Teach the Truth organization, the Tours to Rosewood, that is a part of the history of the Black Miami. So if anyone is out there interested, any students that need a grade, please, Dr. Dunn, I'm sure he will handle that for you and make sure you pass with flying colors.
May I make a comment about something in the film that needs to be sort of corrected a little bit? D.A. Dorsey's daughter told me that her father owned Fisher Island. It was not an island then. It was part of a peninsula. When they put in government cut, it became an island so the ships could get in. So we got Fisher Island. But Dorsey did not own that land up until the Depression. He purchased it in 1918 and sold it by 1919, 1920 because a black man was not allowed to own land on the other side of that railroad track. And white people, the white business community, did not want blacks being able to go out to the ocean, pass all these white tourists, and that's why Dorsey lost that land and Carl Fisher purchased it. The other thing I want to add is that after 42 years of McDuffie being killed, on the 24th of this month, in a couple of days, finally, a state marker will be placed at Miami Avenue and Northeast 38th Street to mark where they beat McDuffie to death. It took 42 years, and thankfully, Mayor Levine Carver has agreed and has pushed this. I wrote the inscription for the marker, telling what happened, and telling what happened to McDuffie. I entered into the mark. The state has to approve this. The state has to approve every comma in a state marker. So I wrote that McDuffie was beaten to death by 5 white police officers. So the state wrote back, you can't take out white. Really take out white, just be beaten to death. I said, if you take out white, then take my name off of it. So they left white in it. So when it goes up on the 24th, you'll be able to see this marker that tells the story of what happened.
Yes. It's interesting, Dr. Dunn, because that's actually leading into the next question that I have for you. As a historian, how did you navigate the challenge of just presenting complex historical narratives in a way that's accessible and engaging to a broad audience, and then with all of the resistance, just like you mentioned, of take out the word white?
After I did the Miami book, I did a book on lynching in Florida, a history of Florida through black eyes. I went to most places in Florida where lynchings took place: Ocoee, Newberry, Lake City, of course, Rosewood. And in 2008, I purchased 5 acres of land in Rosewood. I'm now the only black person today who owns land in Rosewood. You know the Rosewood story, right, Nate? Mm-hmm. Okay. And in doing these stories, going around the state for 4 or 5 years, all of this suffering and anger and guilt, I had to take myself above it all. Mm-hmm. I can't write history by having my own feelings involved in what I'm writing. I try to tell what happened fairly, as best I can, and if I got my own emotions involved in it, I couldn't write. Willie James Howard, 15-year-old black boy in Live Oak, Florida, lynched in 1944 for writing a love letter to a white girl. They let the girl's dad and 2 friends went to this boy's house, took him from his mother's knees, and lynched him. And I've gone to Willie James's grave 20 times. He always follows me back to Miami. So I think it's important to have people go. That's why we do these Teach the Truth tours to Rosewood. That's why I put that stuff downstairs about Rosewood for you all to see. We have to take people to where the blood was shed, to where the fight was held, to have us make an emotional connection to our past and to the sufferings of our ancestors, not just here in Miami, but around the state of Florida. So that's why we do those tours, and that's why I take kids with a parent or grandparent, all expenses paid, to Rosewood and some of the other places that we've had this experience, this historic experience where blacks have been brutalized by mobs.
Thank you. In your research, Dr. Dunn, during the making of this film, how did you witness the impact of gentrification, right? We see it happening. The Miami that I moved to in 2014 is not the Miami that I see right now in 2024. And I'm sure, without a doubt, it's not the Miami that you grew up seeing, right? It's not the Miami that we saw in the film this evening. So talk to us a little bit about gentrification in historical communities like Overtown, like Liberty City, like Little Haiti. Tell us a little bit about that, and where do you see the trajectory of things going?
Well, I think in another 10 years, certainly in another 20 years, Overtown will be primarily Hispanic. If you sit out in this garden on any given day and just watch who comes back and forth, it's white ladies with little dogs walking on 2nd Avenue. There's guys in running shorts, white guys in running shorts up and down Third Avenue. Who would have guessed? We have an advancing canyon coming west to where we are. Now, the movie touched on the decision to make Seventh Avenue the way that they brought I-95 into downtown. They could have brought I-95 into downtown on that railroad track and would not have wiped out Overtown. But the decision was made to bring it down Seventh Avenue. Therefore, the business community could expand to the west into Overtown. Think about it. Had I-95 had come in along the railroad track, it would have hemmed in downtown. They could not have expanded west beyond the railroad track. That's why they decided bring the interstate down 7th Avenue right through Overtown. So Overtown went from 40,000 to about 12,000 people in 10 years because of that interstate. But there was another reason why Overtown is in such bad shape. It wasn't just the interstate. Overtown was also badly mauled by integration. I talked to Dr. William Sawyer. Bill Sawyer was up to his son. I talked to the son of Dr. William Sawyer, who was one of the first black physicians in Miami. Dr. Sawyer owned a lot of land in Overtown, a lot of land right across Overtown. And Bill Sawyer, and they owned the Mary Elizabeth Hotel, one of the biggest night spots in Overtown. The Sawyers owned that land and that hotel. And Bill Sawyer and his wife Bernice told me, Dr. Dunn, we weren't in favor of integration. The black elites of Miami didn't want integration. We owned the businesses. The people would then leave us and go shop at the downtown Miami, at the fountain. They go to Miami Beach. So integration and the interstate killed Overtown. I wouldn't say killed, made it such a challenging community to try to rebound and become what we had all dreamed that it would be, which was a historic black community that got preserved. Gentrification, keep in mind, the folks who are buying all this land and putting up these buildings didn't steal it. That land was sold to them by black people. The Sawyers sold that land that now you see these huge apartments on. Bill Sawyer's relatives sold that. Same thing in Coconut Grove. You don't like what you see in Coconut Grove, these big white pillboxes going up, not 10 feet of land for grass or trees. Multi-million-dollar homes in Coconut Grove are little shotgun houses that Syrup built once stood. The land wasn't taken. Black people are selling the land. And so gentrification is being sort of enhanced by the willingness to sell the land. And who could blame them? A little shotgun house in Coconut Grove. Can you imagine what that would be worth or is worth today? So economics is a big part of it.
What I also hear, Dr. Dunn, is the ownership is in the land, right? And what I hear you saying is, although, the land was sold, we need to get our land back.
That's
right? If we want to really stop gentrification, if we want to stop the high rises, if we want to stop everything that's going on, we need to get our land back. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your organization, Teach the Truth, because we have our governor who's saying we need to take certain things out of the history books. We need to take it out of the curriculum. And then we have a person like you who's going against that loud and proud saying, I am going to teach the truth. And this is how I'm going to do it. I love when I heard Enid Pickney where she said, there was time when you had your neighbors and you were able to borrow sugar and go next door and, everyone looked out for each other. And that was a moment of just community. And when I first met you, you told me the garden is going to be here to promote community. It's going to be our gathering place, right? It's so. Right. That's the hope. But with that hope, in that spirit, and to constantly say it and to act on it, that garden, friends, that came up so fast.
Since October, yeah.
Yeah. And look at how beautiful it is. And
collard greens grow fast.
Look at how many people have stopped by. Look at how many people want to explore the garden. Look at how we're taking what was once an eyesore of Overtown. There were cars there. It was an empty lot. And now we're beautifying it and we're making it a place to teach the truth. So talk to us a little bit about your organization, Teach the Truth, how the garden is in some way also it's teaching the truth, but it's also talking back against that whole gentrification. Yes. It's like, let's put a pause on this, right?
Well, that garden exists for two reasons. One, to grow food to give away in Overtown. And then secondly, to have a beautiful place. Let me be nice. I was going to say to spit in DeSantis' face. No, no. To give away banned books that DeSantis probably would like us not to give out. So we have volunteers who come in on Sundays, and we set up tables, and we have purchased $20,000 worth of books to
Wow.
give away to people in the community. All you got to do is walk by and pick one up. So giving away the books and giving away the food is why we have the garden here. But in 4 years, that garden is going to have a building like the rest of them. It's going to be a condo apartments. I'm only being loaned that property until the developer is ready to put a building up on it. It's going to be housing. I was told that years ago when I had a garden on that same spot. It's going to be housing sooner or later. So we're going to use it for 3 or 4 years. We're going to do things that we hope will help the community. But I know that this is a short-term project, but we'll make the best of it that we can.
I also heard in the documentary that the elected officials, the athletes, the people with some influence, right, some credibility in the city, how they, not me yet, but I'm hoping to be that person, how they need to come together to put a stop for certain things. Is that one of your hopes for the garden? Like maybe somewhere somebody's going to say, I'm going to buy this property so it doesn't have to go, so we can have a staple in our community to give back to the community and to also gather as a community. Could you see that possibly happening, Dr.
Nope.
Dunn? Oh, that was quick. Tell us why not. Share with us. Why do you think that's not going to happen?
I think a lot of folks have given up on Overtown. They just figure any money spent here is money thrown away. Why invest in something in Overtown when it's not going to last? Plus, I'm 83 years old. I've been begging for money for 45 years. I'm tired of doing that.
Right.
So I'm not asking folks to give us some money, please help us be able. We have very wealthy private donors who are helping us with this garden. We have some large foundations that are helping us with what we're doing in Overtown. But I just can't go around begging for money anymore. I'm too old for that. Been around doing too long that same thing. So I'm counting on large foundations. The Mellon Foundation, which is headed by a young black woman who's a friend of my daughter's, we're going to get $1.5 million from them to continue to do our work in Overtown and in Florida. So I'll go for the big corporations, the big foundations, rather than sending out letters and hoping folks will send a check.
Well, if we know any people with big checkbooks, big pockets, big hearts willing to pour into Overtown, please connect them to Dr. Dunn, because it takes a village, right? It takes the community. It takes all of us to make change. And like you said, I too feel that some people are giving up on Overtown. Anytime people see me in my Overtown shirt, they're like, "You're always repping Overtown, like you're from here." And I'm like, "I'm not, but I'm connected to this city. I'm connected to a city where I can see the rise of the black man. I'm connected to this city where I can see myself walking down the street, where I can see others that look like me, and I feel comfortable, it's like home, it's the home away from home, and we want to preserve our city." So again, Dr. Dunn, I truly thank you for what you're doing. I thank you for the film because, like I said, there were so many things that I didn't know that now I feel much more educated on, and I know I can go out and share that. It's one thing to have all the knowledge and to have all the answers and to hold on to it, but who is that serving, right? It's not serving anyone except for yourself. It's what we know and what we do with the knowledge and how we pass it down that really impacts the community and really changes the trajectory of history. So I thank you for that. And I encourage everyone here today to go and do the same. If they haven't watched the film, if they haven't read the book, buy the book. It's on Amazon. The film is on Amazon. We can do exactly what we did here right in our living rooms. Grab your nieces, your nephews, your grandkids, all of them. They need to know, especially if they are the future of Miami. If they're the future of any black city, they're the future, period. So it's very important that we share this message.
Yes.
Also want to open up the floor because, as I mentioned earlier today, this is not just a conversation between me and you. This is a conversation between the community that we have in the room. So if there's any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Dunn, if there's any, just a conversation that you'd like to have in this safe space tonight, we are a community. We are here making history. Let's talk about it. So I open the floor to everyone here. Don't be shy. I know it's time to talk. I've done enough talking. Dr. Dunn said he's 83. He he's tired of talking too. He's tired of begging. He's like, talk to me. So talk to us,
Yes.
please. We encourage you.
Oh, the Kingsleys? The Kingsleys? Oh my goodness. Thank you for asking. I wrote one novel. Oh my God. Hardest thing I've ever written. It's the story of a black woman who was an African princess when she was captured at age 13 in Senegal and brought to Florida by a Florida slave owner who married her. Actually, he was on the ship that brought her from Senegal to Florida and took her as his concubine during the middle of passage. So she had to sleep in his cabin the whole 6 or 8 weeks to get from Africa to the United States. And when he landed her in Jacksonville, she was pregnant with his first child. So this woman, Anna, had 4 children for this man, this white slave owner, on a plantation right north of Jacksonville. And the book is about their struggle as an interracial family in Florida in the early 1800s. And a lot of things that you saw and heard in this film really go all the way back to the time in which these people lived. The Kingsleys is available on Amazon. It's a very good novel. It was a stretch for me to write a novel. I mean, I had to describe Anna being raped on the slave ship by this white man. She's 13. How do you describe? And I'm a man trying to tell what this child was going through when this man, and he was in his 40s, and she's a 13-year-old girl, and he's raping her at will for the entire middle passage. So it's a very, very, I think, emotional novel. I tried to be true to history in telling Anna's story. But if you have a chance, Anna Kingsley was a hero in Florida. Incidentally, I'll get to the. Okay, I won't tell you the last. Well, she married this guy. He was older than she. He dies in 1843 during slavery. But he has groomed her and taught her to run his plantations. So Anna ran his plantation, the Kingsley plantation, which still exists. The only Florida plantation that still exists is the Kingsley plantation, and Anna ran it when her husband was going back to Africa to bring in more slaves. Anyway, he dies in 1843. They're now married. They have 4 children. And Kingsley leaves his slaves and his plantations, he now owns 3 plantations, to this black woman. And they're mixed race children in 1843 in Florida.
Wow.
All right. So his white relatives challenged this. You can't leave slaves to a person who was enslaved. He freed her, of course. You can't leave slaves to a black person. You can't leave property to mixed race children in Florida. The case goes all the way up to the Florida Supreme Court. In 1846, the Florida Supreme Court hears the Kingsley's case. Guess who won? Buy the book, damn it. I'm not going to tell you. But it's a true story. All of that, it's all true, and the ending is true as well. But you got to read the book to find out what happened. Thank you for asking that question.
Thank you. That was a great one. I like how you did that. Do we have any other questions in the audience? Great
I
question.
went to Rosewood for the first time in 1997. Rosewood is directly west of Gainesville. Go up Highway 24, hang a left, and 9 miles before the Gulf of Mexico, you run into Rosewood. So I was at a conference in Gainesville in 1997. Had heard about Rosewood, so I took Highway 24 Sunday afternoon. Cloudy, it was going to rain, so I went 40 miles out of Gainesville, and I saw the Rosewood sign, and I made a left, and there was a cul-de-sac. It's all woods now. So I get out of the car at this cul-de-sac, and I go into the woods, and I see the old railroad track, not the rails, but the railroad track bed running through the woods. And I walked along this railroad, trespassing on white people's property, but I walked about a half a mile along the railroad bed, and then I saw the graveyard, the Rosewood Colored Cemetery. So I went over and started messing around and saw some grave markers, and by this time it was starting to rain. So I walked back to my car, and as I'm walking back to my car that Sunday afternoon, I'm thinking, I could get killed out here. Nobody would even know that I'm out here. So I got scared and it starts to rain. I get back to my car and I leave Rosewood, but it stuck, that railroad track hit me. So I go back years later and purchased 5 acres that contain a part of that railroad track. Because as you know, in the story, the there was a white family that saved many black people by hiding them during the massacre in their house, and then had a train sneak in and take women and children, no boys over 13, out of Rosewood to safety. So I wanted to buy that property because it's the only land that now has that remaining railroad bed in it. And it's pristine, untouched since 1923. When I purchased that land, if I walked off the road, dirt road, I could get lost on my own property because it was so overgrown. So we cleared it. We're going to put the Rosewood Masonic Lodge on it. We're going to rebuild that lodge. The lodge, Masonic Lodge, was the schoolhouse. It was the largest building in Rosewood. So I have some private donors who said they're going to put that lodge up on my property, and we're going to have it be a museum in Rosewood. Rosewood is it's a difficult community. All white, all 5 acres. You can't have anything out there less than 5 acres, and everyone is not happy about me. You heard what happened, right, back in September? Yeah. Maybe everybody, I'll be brief. But last September, I went up to Rosewood to clear part of our property for recognizing the 100th anniversary of the event. I was with my son and 4 of the black men. We met 2 white men in Rosewood to look at the property and decide about clearing a part of it. And as we were leaving, my neighbor, whom I never spoke to, rose up in his big white F-150, Confederate flag in the middle, on the front of it. He rolls his window down. What's going on out here? I said, well, sir, this is my property, and that's as far as I got. This is a dirt road, man, mind you. He said, well, if that's your property, why don't you all park on your side of the road? I said, sir, this is a county road. We'll park wherever we wish. Threw him into a rage. Steps on the gas, almost runs us over. He's using the N-word. Niggas out here, get the niggas. I won't use all the words he used, but you get my point. And we called the Levy County Police. They came out. They arrested him several days later. But when I got back to Miami, I called the FBI and reported this as a hate crime. They arrested him. They tried him in Gainesville about 6 months ago, all-white jury. And they found him guilty of 6 counts of a hate crime for what he did in Alachua County. Can you believe that? Just last year. So he's in prison tonight.
Yes.
He got a year and a day in prison for what he did. So there are not a lot of folks out there who really are indifferent about outcoming. Many folks are angry about it. Some folks are okay about it. But it's a very challenging community to have property if you're black. Hell no. Hell no. I spent 7 years in the uniform of a United States naval officer defending my country. I never thought that this would happen. I always thought that we were the exception, that the kind of things we see happening now could not happen in our country. But here we are. But my feeling is that this is temporary. This is not America. This is not us. Us is this room.
Right.
And you'll see that in November at the elections. I'm not horrified about the possibility. I don't think this man's going to be elected president. I think the country is better than Trump, and we will show that in November. I'm very optimistic about our country. Well, every time I go to my property, talk about the Trump land, every yard has a Trump sign, DeSantis land. Everybody, it's Trump country up there. This is North Florida. But there are more of us than them. Remember, you guys remember Gillum, who ran for governor? Long story, bad candidate, but he almost beat DeSantis the first time around by a few thousand votes. He almost won. So Florida's a lot more purple than people think. This DeSantis thing, I think, is a passing phenomenon. The Trump thing, I think, is a passing phenomenon. America's going to come into its own in November. I hope you do.
Yes. We have time for one last question.
I think the lesson is we need to get community-based groups to combine their resources and buy land. It really is ultimately about the land. 95% of the people who live in Liberty City rent from white people or Hispanics. It may be the same in Overtown. We're not landowners. We are a landless people. We've always been. And without owning land, we don't have real power. I told my children when I bought those 5 acres in Rosewood, if y'all sell my land, I'm going to come back from the grave and haunt you. Don't sell my damn land. So, we need to find ways to recapture, particularly historic sites where these things happened. Um, I, I, I think that's critically important. And I think to do that, we need to come together with resources that would enable us to do that collectively. A good question. Y'all have been great. Plus, I've never did a talkback drinking bourbon. This is cool.
Well, welcome to the Center for Black Innovation.
I'll be back.
I love it. Again, you all have been great. Dr. Dunn, you have been excellent. Are there any final words or a message of hope to Black Miami that you would like to share with us? I know I hear you say buy the land, but anything else you wanted to, on top of buy the land, right? On top of buy the land, what's your
Sure.
message to Black
Sure.
Miami in 2024?
Well, let's flip back to 2016. Gadsden County, Florida, North Florida, has more black people than white people, more black voters than white voters. Gadsden County. If Gadsden County blacks had turned out, Trump wouldn't have won Florida. Gadsden County had 30% turnout. Can you imagine? Broward County, the second largest black county in terms of population, also meager turnout. So we didn't vote. Only those of us who really paid attention, were committed to the cause, went out and voted. We have got to get our people to be excited. There's no Martin Luther King coming again. It's us with who we got in front of us, and we got to deal with that. We have got to vote. That's the real. You all know that. I'm just telling you what you already know. We have got to vote. That's our power.
Well, thank you again, Dr. Dunn.
My
This has been
pleasure.
excellent. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Again, my name is Zakia White. I'm the events manager here. I welcome you to come back every month. We have a new speaker, well, a different featured speaker during Wine, Whiskey, and Wisdom Wednesday. We also have free co-working on Fridays, so you're welcome to come here, co-work, connect, in community. If you do not follow us on Instagram and Facebook, please follow the Center for Black Innovation. Also follow Teach the Truth so we can learn more, so you can learn more about the Rosewood tours and what's happening in the garden. Anything else?
Actually, it's the Miami Center for Racial Justice.
There we go. Right here on my t-shirt. Miami Center for Racial Justice. There we go. You can also follow Dr. Dunn, who is on Instagram. I follow you. I see you posting the beautiful pictures of the plants. And I encourage everyone to stay connected because as Dr. Dunn said, the power is in this room. So please stay connected. Let the Center for Black Innovation be your hub to be innovative, to be a community, and stop by the garden and see us again, right? Yes, get your free books because that's where they're hiding all the information.